I think you start off with asking the question, what do I want? So what do I want? Get really clear on what your outcome is. Because if your outcome is, you really want to do this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you're already married to it, amazing. Or maybe you want to have a lifestyle business. Maybe you want to be able to work half the amount of time that you normally would, maybe 20 hours a week, and make the same or more money. So let's get very clear on what you want the outcome to be. How do you want to structure your business? Who do you want to work with? Be clear on the types of people you want to work with. Otherwise, you're going to end up with people that you don't enjoy working with, and it's going to make it a slog.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, a serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as a founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. You ever need help with yours? Just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Kevin Bees. And Kevin grew up and had his dad that worked in as a manager with electrical contracting business, and with the loss of dad's job, and made for some challenging times. And during that, went off to college and wasn't sure what he wanted to do, but wanted to go into business. So after going to college, went and worked for Intel for a period of time, fixing parts on the organization that didn't work, i.e. were broken. Left Intel, worked for went and got qualified as a global accountant. Worked for Airbus for a period of time. Then worked in Australia for another business in the travel industry before starting his own business and consultation service. So with that much as introduction, welcome on the podcast, Kevin.
Great to be here, Devin. I've been really looking forward to our conversation.
Absolutely. Excited to have you here. So I just gave a quick run through to a much longer journey. So why don't we rewind and go back a bit back in time to where your journey got started with your dad and lost a job and going to college and all that fun things.
Yeah, I actually, it's interesting you bring that up, because I do remember back to that time. I would have been in my teenage years, and it was a recessionary period in the UK, and a lot of businesses in construction, and my dad, electrical contractor, were just froze up. There was a bigger supply of services than there was a need for them. And of course, with my father being, he was a manager in that company. I think he probably did his best that he could to help that company survive and go through, but it didn't work. It didn't succeed. And so I think everyone in the organization ended up getting retrenched or without work. And of course, at a time when there wasn't much other work around, it made for very tough times as a family. Okay, so I remember the stress, particularly of my father and my mother, about how they were going to be able to put food on the table, how they were going to get through this period of time. And I think at that age, I think it's quite an uncertain feeling when your parents are always very loving, very supportive, seem like they got everything under control, and all of a sudden it's like, well, maybe it's not under control. Maybe there's an issue here, and we're not going to be able to eat. So I remember the fear, the concern around that for them, and I think on some level, I decided at that point that I wanted to be able to have the ability to help. I wanted to be able to stop this situation. They were suffering, and there was fear for them, and I didn't want that to happen for them, and I didn't want that to happen for other people. Probably on some subconscious level, I decided that, and then over the years that followed that, I ended up getting finishing at the top of my business school, and going on and getting my Chartered Global Management Accountant certification. And I think all of those things, without realizing at the time, it was probably on some level designed to do that, to help other people so that they didn't have to go through that pain and that challenge. Part of building my skills. Oh, yes.
Diving into that, just so you went off to school, got your degree. Now, undergraduate, was that what was the undergraduate degree in?
It was business. It was a business honors in business. Yeah.
Oh, got it. So now you get the honors in business. Now remind me, because I know at some point in there you worked with Intel, and I couldn't remember, is that after graduation, during school, or kind of how did that intersperse through your journey?
Yeah, so part of the degree was that you would have a year in industry, and I went to Intel Corporation. I had some amazing mentors there that I worked with for the year, and I started working in they called it the budget and operations team. So it was like the planning for the financial planning of the organization, and I had a really interesting moment there because one of my roles was to analyze the data, build some graphs, some information. And of course, I was just passing it on to my boss, and I thought that was just kind of as far as it went. But one day, I was in this meeting, which was called by the head of the EMEA region, so Europe, Middle East, and Africa. There were several thousand people in this meeting, dialing in from all over the place, and I was actually sat in the room where they were giving this presentation, and I started talking about how they were changing strategy, how they were going to be doing some things differently, and then to justify the decision, they put up my analysis, my chart. And I had one of those moments where like the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. It's like, wow, I just thought it was going to my boss, but it's gone to clearly to his boss and his boss or her boss, and ended at the very top of the organization. And so it made me realize, even as someone who is very junior in the organization, if you're doing the right analysis and looking at the numbers in the right way, you can have the ability to help change the strategy or help move the business in the right direction. And I think it was a pivotal moment for me because it basically helped me realize that anyone with some understanding, basic understanding of how to do analysis, we're going to be able to make better decisions and more effective decisions in the business. And I think after that, I decided I would go on and get my Chartered Global Management Accounting certification. So I actually had some skill. I mean, I had no skills, and I was able to help make an impact there. And now, if I can learn these skills, I can really help other organizations. And so that was the reason for going down that route. And that's getting that certification has really helped me open the doors with a lot of other organizations and make a lot of improvements to the organizations I work with over the years.
No, it makes perfect sense. So you kind of figure out, hey, here's one thing maybe I'm good at. I find a bit of your niche, and also find an opportunity to say, hey, I'll go back to school, get some additional background and education in this area. So now you go and get that degree. You're coming back out of school, and where'd your journey go from there?
Yeah, that's great. And so whilst I was studying, I mean, I did that in evenings and weekends whilst I was working full time. And I worked for several organizations along the way in the UK, PR agency and plant and machinery hire. And I was able to start using those skills straight away. And now what it meant is that I was able to uncover all sorts of things, help businesses find more cash flow, help businesses find more profitability. In one instance, uncover, a fraud in the organization, and stop that from happening anymore. So these skills really got me on a great track to be able to just help any organization. And so I ended up in the UK working with Airbus. They would make in our particular factory was making the wings for the Airbus aircraft. And it was a really fascinating place to be. I was hired to help put together a plan for them to build a new factory, and to create this new A350 aircraft. But an interesting thing happened. The Spanish government, bid more for the work than the UK government. So the work went to Spain. So I said, right, that's it. I'm out of here. I'm going to take a year out. I'm going to travel. Had the opportunity to go through South America, New Zealand. The plan was to go for Australia, Asia, and then back home. But I stopped in Australia. I spent a little bit more money on my travels by that point. So I thought I would work there. And then, these skills and qualifications allow me to land work. And eventually that led into me getting a passport in the country. And I've been very fortunate to live down here in Australia ever since. Now, what happened in these organizations when I was working in Australia, I got a reputation. They would send me into the business units that weren't working to figure out why they weren't working and how to turn them around. Now, the strategy and the tactics of that was straightforward. I had all the training and all the education to do that. But what I found is that when a business isn't functioning very well, and the systems and the processes aren't going very well, it leads to challenges with the team. So I would be sat in my office and a team member would come in and they would be crying on me. And the best strategy I had for them was like, oh, here you go, I have a tissue. That was the only thing I had in my skill set. No one had really trained me and prepared me for leadership. So I went off and got all sorts of training and education in leadership, communication. NLP was a very valuable part of that training. And for me, that course, that program really gave me some skills to take control of my mind and what I was thinking about. And I realized when I could control what I was thinking about, it really made a major impact on my outcomes. I could actually, accomplish things that I couldn't do before. I had all these limitations and doubts. I I've been single for a long time and felt as though, I was never worthy of having a partner. I didn't believe in my ability to be a leader. Even though I had these technical skills, I didn't believe in my ability to do leadership. And I had some goals and things I wanted to accomplish, which with my mental chatter was never going to let me get there. Now, when I realized I can change the way I was thinking and get different results, and then I can do that with my team, well, the business started getting better results. I helped the team overcome their challenges and their fears, and of course the results in the business improved even more. And that was like another pivotal moment for me in my career, because I realized that working with people and helping them to shift and change can be an even more powerful way to help the business grow. I can do all the strategy and the tactics, but if the bit in the mindset isn't firing right, they're not going to implement the strategy and the tactics. They're not going to follow through in the right way. And so that's when it became more interesting for me. Rather than working in this corporate career where I was, stuck, dealing with planning cycles, budget cycles, investors reports, all of those things. Actually, it was more exciting to be working over here with small to medium-sized business owners. And that's perhaps where my journey kind of came full circle from that initial feeling at the beginning, because back then the reason I wanted to get these skills in the first place was to help people like my dad, who had really struggled and gone through tough times. And I kind of by full circle, I came back to that. And for the last decade, I've been serving people in that way.
Well, that's awesome. So now maybe just to back up just a little bit. So you went through, you worked at various businesses and also kind of traveled around a bit, landed in Australia. And you were working at, I think, as you mentioned, a company there in the travel industry. Now, kind of at what point did you decide, okay, I'd like to venture off on my own, or otherwise do my own business, or kind of go to the start a business and start doing consulting? How did that kind of come about?
Yeah, so I was I was in that organization for 4 years, and they are a very large brand. We had some amazing experiences there. We ended up doubling the size of the business through some mergers and refinancing. So it was a very interesting place to be. I think probably about 3 years, 2.5, 3 years into that journey was when I went into that. There was that particular organization where I realized that, things weren't working because of the psychology and the mindset. And so it was probably a good year and a half of me getting additional training and education outside of the organization. It gave me enough confidence to feel as though, hey, well, I've really got something here that could really help these organizations. So yeah, probably about 2.5 years into the 4 years of being there, I had another interesting experience working in that organization. I mean, I was in accounting and finance, and I'm very introverted in my nature. But they were having a Christmas party, and there were over 400 plus people, 500 people come to this Christmas party, and they said, the executive assistant of the CEO, we happen to be having a chat, and she just jokingly said, hey, we need an MC for the Christmas party, would you do it? And I thought she was joking. I went, yeah, okay, all right, no problems. And then a week out from this Christmas party, she said, so how's your preparation going? What do you mean, what preparation? She said, well, you're the MC for the party. So all of a sudden, I've never done any speaking or presenting, and I'm going to be showing up to an event with 400 to 500 people, and I need to speak and present. And that was another moment for me, because I didn't have any skills in that area. I didn't have any training in that area. So I muddled through. I managed to do this, this MCing of the Christmas event. You can imagine hundreds of drunk people, and I got through. And I got to the end of that, and I just had this feeling like I felt so anxious for that whole week or so that I knew that I was doing it, and then I didn't enjoy it because it felt like a lot of pressure, a lot of things I wasn't prepared for. So I think I made a decision at that point as well, that I would need to go and learn and get some skills on how to present more effectively and speak more effectively in front of audiences. And so then that was another impetus for me to go and get some additional training outside of that. Now, fortunately, I did that, and they invited me back the year after, and I had one of these amazing moments where we were, we were on this massive boat in Sydney Harbour. And I remember speaking now way more confidently than I was a year before. And I just remember this boat. I could see as the boat was kind of, moving around, I could see over the sea of, 400 heads on the back of the boat. It was like the Sydney Opera House, the Harbour Bridge, and the sun setting behind. And I had one of those moments as well, like wow, like here I am. A few years ago, I was in the UK, dark, wet, and now here I am in Australia. and I'm having this opportunity to do this. I never would have imagined that that was possible a few years ago, and and here I am right in this moment doing this. So maybe a bit of a deviation there on your question, but I think if we stay open to possibilities and take the opportunities that come up for us, even if they're out of our comfort zone, it can be rewarding to us in ways that we never expected.
Oh, that's awesome. So and that makes good sense, and even with the slight departure from the main journey, but so you go through all of that and you say, okay, arrived at the point where I'd like to do my own business, or start getting more into consulting, and otherwise kind of captain my own ship, so to speak. So now walk us through, how did you, kind of, how did that go? Did you get it started, have tons of clients, took off like a rocket ship, and it was a smashing success? You got it started and it fell apart, and you had to pivot multiple times, and all the clients fell through and couldn't make a living? Or give us an idea kind of as to how it got started and where it's ended up today.
Yeah, awesome. So by the point I decided to leave the organization, I built some skills in how to coach people. So that was one skill set I knew I had under my belt. But to leave an organization and start something yourself, well, there's really three skill sets you need to have. Number one, you need to, number two, if you can do the coaching, number two, you need to be able to do sales. Because if you can't have a sales conversation, you're never going to get clients. And then number three, you need to be good at marketing, because if you can't generate leads, you can't have the sales conversation, you can't do your work as a coach. And one of the things I'd learned along the way from many of the mentors and courses that I've been on was that success leaves clues. So I could go out on my own and, trial and error, try and figure this out, or I could go and work with someone who's already having a lot of success in this field, in this industry. By whether you call it serendipity or just whatever else, I found through my network a gentleman in the other state in Melbourne who was a leading business coach in the country, and I managed to strike a deal with him where I would go and work with him. I would be helping to do the business development. He would teach me how to do the business development, and in return for the clients that I created, I would get support with him from the coaching and the education there. So I went and found that gentleman, and we worked together for maybe a year and a half. And my level of knowledge and skill grew so much more rapidly than I could have done in any other context, because I'm tapping into this guy who'd been in the industry for 20 years. I was getting insight and wisdom much faster than I would have doing it by trial and error. Now, that said, it wasn't particularly an easy journey, because the business development that we had then, social media wasn't quite as big as it is now. I mean, it was there in its infancy, I think, but wasn't being quite used in the way it was. I was doing a lot of cold calling, right? And that was a tough gig, doing 100 calls every single day, 5 days a week. So I would do that for 2 weeks. At the end of those, calling, what's that, 1,000 people across 2 weeks, I end up with 30 people come to, an event. And we would convert some of those into clients, and that process ran on and on and on. So my skills grew very rapidly there. At that time, I'd been approached by Tony Robbins' organization to, I had some connections there, and they heard that I was getting great results with my clients. So they asked me to apply to work with their organization, and I applied, and they have a significant amount of applications, and I didn't get in. And about 9 months later, the opportunity came up again to apply. So I applied again. And I think they had over 1,000 applications. They stopped reviewing them after 200, and they invited 30 of those applicants to a 3-month-long telephone interview process. And during that time, they really put us through our paces. We were live on these calls, and at any point, they would call on any one of us to do some coaching or prove that we knew a certain piece of knowledge or philosophy that they had. And in that 3 months, they took a handful of us, there was probably 20, 25 of us, to a 10-day live interview process in Chicago. And I don't know if you've ever seen The Apprentice, but the interview process was like The Apprentice, but on steroids. I arrived there, and the other applicants included the Admiral of the US Navy. There was a Nobel Prize winner. There was someone with a PhD teaching psychology at Harvard Business School. There were CEOs, CFOs, marathon runners, triathletes, like you name it. It was a who's who of achievers. And every one of those 10 days, they had us up early, staying up late, really stretching us and pushing us in, and showing us that if we were unreasonable with ourselves, if we set more demands of ourselves and push ourselves further at how much more we could accomplish and how much we could achieve. And they really pushed us, and it was such an amazing experience to do that and go through it with those people. And at the end of it, they invited me to take a position on the team as the coach. Now that was another thing for my business, because when I speak about the sales and the marketing aspect, with those guys working on their team, I didn't need to do the sales and marketing aspect for a period of time. They were giving me clients. I told them I had capacity to take on 30 clients. And then the next day I open up my inbox and there's 50 new clients there. And so you can imagine that, again, the level of growth in terms of the coaching skills, you're dealing with, a high volume of clients in a short period of time from every different background, every different challenge. So the amount of coaching hours under the belt grew very rapidly as well. So maybe my journey into entrepreneurship was probably a little bit softer, because on one hand, I got a mentor to work with and help me build those skills. And then I got to work with another organization who could give me, the clients. Once I built up enough, enough skill, enough experience, enough testimonials under my belt, that then made it a lot easier to step out and, and start finding more specific, more clients specifically for me.
Well, that's awesome. No, sounds like it was a great way to start. I like how, circling back a little bit, how you, went through the, hey, I'm just going to get out there. I'm going to cold call a whole bunch of individuals. We'll get some people. We know that, first of all, cold calling is going to take a lot of cold calling. So we'll call 1,000 people. We got 30 of those 30. We whittled it down to some of those converted over, and you get get ready to and get started. And, it's kind of one where a lot of times people just want that magic bullet, or that, that silver bullet that just makes it so you can get clients and you get it going and it's perfect. You don't have to put in the work. And yeah, you just have to, I think it's a great reflection of, there really isn't that silver bullet, and it's just getting out there, grinding it, and making sure that you put in the time and effort, providing a good product and good service, but also making sure you have that effort and then and being successful. So that's awesome. So with that, kind of, you started to touch on it, but or give us an idea, where are you at today? Kind of where's the business gone, and how are things going?
Yeah, and so I was fortunate enough to work with Tony. I stayed working with them. I had my own business that I was running, and I was able to look after 40 to 50 of the clients for them. I did that for 4.5, 5 years. Coming towards the end of that, Tony gave me the opportunity to present for him on a couple of occasions at his Date with Destiny event in Australia. And so I had the opportunity to be in front of the room of people and help them, realize how coaching would help them so they could join the coaching program. And off of the back of that, I kind of felt as though, like when I did that presentation before, and I felt, really not skilled enough, I felt as though my skills had grown a fair bit. And an opportunity came up for me to work with a US company who were running a lot of events in Asia and then in Europe. And so they invited me out to their events to start presenting. And that was such an amazing experience. Getting paid to travel overseas, present to different, cultures, clients, back to 300, 400 people at a time in the room. And that was really great. Again, that helped raise my visibility, my awareness, my skill set. And I think what I realized along the way, all of that stuff, the cold calling, yes, it was the right thing to do at the time. But there are different strategies now. There are more effective, more leveraged ways to create new clients. And of course, getting in front of rooms full of people and sharing valuable stuff just from the perspective of wanting to give and help and support people. Well, typically when you do that, there's a percentage of people in the room, on the call, listening to the podcast, who think, hey, well, this guy may know some things that can help me. And typically that's been a very leveraged way to get in front of the right people. So this year, as an example, I'll give you an example on a recent event I did. I ran a presentation on profit maximization, which is something that I'm a specialist in. I found a partner to do that with. So they already had a database of clients who would really value, what I was sharing. So I gave a free presentation. They invited along people. Now they had 80 people sign up, 40 people showed up to the call. And off the back of that call, I had 8 people who showed an interest in speaking to me about, becoming a client. And, from those 8 calls, we ended up with 5 clients, who 5 people who became clients. And so that's a way more leveraged way than getting on the phone to, 100 people every day. So my business now is much more focused on, how do I serve and add value? How do I get out and speak to groups of people or audiences of people where I can really make a difference to them? And and generate connections that way. And as a result, I have a really great lifestyle. We don't need to work, too many hours every week. I get to be working with clients, that I really love. They're from different industries. I know a lot of marketers always tell you, get your niche, make sure you have a niche. I've kept it broad, and I think that's really helped my clients. I get different ideas from different industries, and we can cross-pollinate those ideas. So I get a lot of flexibility to be with my family, spend time at the beach, in the pool with the kids yesterday, and still make a difference to my clients.
Awesome. No, it sounds like definitely a great progression and a great journey and a great place to be today. So, well, simple and easy as that is, not really simple or easy, but now as we're reached the present day of your journey and kind of where are caught up to where you're at today, great time to transition to the two questions I always ask at the end of each episode. So the first question I always ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? And what did you learn from it?
Yeah, okay. I'd like to answer this in two ways, I think, because I think there's the decisions that I have taken and maybe the decisions that I haven't, or decisions that I kind of deferred. And so I think the worst decision I made, I was charmed by a very good business person. And he said, look, you have a great business. I have a great business. Why don't we merge our businesses together? And his business was significantly bigger than mine in terms of revenue. And he had a team of people, a marketing person, salesperson. And I thought, hey, well, that's kind of interesting, because if I merge in with them, then I get to focus more on the bit that I really love, which is serving the clients. There'll be a team of people to do those things. And that sounded really appealing to me. We started to do this merger, and we, got connected, started getting involved. And I think there was like a difference in values or a difference in approach. A really great guy. I love them. I love what they did, their approach. But all of a sudden, this thing I mentioned, I got this great lifestyle now, going into working in this partnership with someone else. Well, all of a sudden, I didn't have control over my time in the same way before. I couldn't have the flexibility with my lifestyle in the same way I had before. And it wasn't really a fit, from my values perspective. Now, the smart thing I think I did in that process was we agreed we would date before we get married. We're going to do it as 3 months as a trial, because if we'd gone all in, like he'd wanted, then there would be no return. I would have, given up my clients, my autonomy, all of my branding, etc. And so I think the decision to go into a partnership, it wasn't the right fit for me. And what did I learn is we got to stick to our values. Is whilst I was charmed by the amount of revenue they were doing, when I actually looked at the numbers, they were doing significantly more revenue, significantly more work, but actually I was making the same or more than they were at the end on the bottom line. So the lesson I think really is, you don't always have to have a big business to have a successful business. Having a company of 1 or 2 or 3 can be highly leveraged and highly profitable. And I think it's important to believe in yourself and run your own race. Stick to the thing that you're doing, and maybe don't get distracted by charming invites like that. And run your own race, do your own thing. Is probably the key lesson I took from that. And I said I'd like to answer it in 2 parts. That was something I did do that didn't work out. But I think sometimes for us as business owners, sometimes the things that we don't do, the decisions that we don't take, are probably more costly for us. I think if I look back over the years, I probably could have taken some bigger risks. I probably could have done some things to make myself more visible and get myself out there and make more attention. I feel on some level, I've been the best kept secret working, within other organizations or behind other organizations. Haven't really shouted about my skills or my abilities, as much as I could have done. And I think it's not always the person with the best skills that does well in the marketplace. It's the person who becomes the most visible, the person who gets the most attention. And so I think if I'm reflecting on things I haven't done, decisions I haven't taken, what I've learned from that was, look, we really need to be out there letting more people know about our skills or abilities or approach, or otherwise, we're going to remain the best kept secret.
All right, that was a great couple mistakes and mistakes and lessons learned. So now it probably dovetails well into the second question that I asked, which is, if you're talking to someone that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
I think you start off with asking the question, what do I want? So what do I want? Get really clear on what your outcome is, because if your outcome is, you really want to do this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you're already married to it, amazing. Or maybe you want to have a lifestyle business. Maybe you want to be able to work half the amount of time that you normally would, maybe 20 hours a week, and make the same or more money. So let's get very clear on what you want the outcome to be. How do you want to structure your business? Who do you want to work with? Be clear on the types of people you want to work with. Otherwise, you're going to end up with people that you don't enjoy working with, and it's going to make it a slog. Now, part of designing about what do you want, I think I see a lot of mistakes with people who've started businesses. There's 3 things that we really need to consider if you're right at the beginning of your journey. Number 1 is, what are your skills? What are the skills that you have that you can use to the highest advantage of others? So Buckminster Fuller said this, he said, your significance may forever remain obscure to you, but you can presume that as long as you're using your skills and abilities to the highest advantage of others, then you live in your significance. So what are the skills that you have that you can use for other people? Number 2 is, what are you passionate about? Because if you have a skill set that you can use for the advantage of others and you are not passionate about it, then of course you're going to end up in a burnout position. You're going to keep doing this work, but it just is not going to be fun for you. And I've met too many people like that. The third thing is starving crowd. So if you've got the skill set, you're passionate about something, we need an audience or a market who has a problem that you want to resolve. Because I've seen this the other way. I've seen people who have the skills and the passion, but then there's no market to buy their product. And then, it's financially unsuccessful, it becomes a hobby. And then I've seen it the third way around. I've seen people have the skills, they have a starving crowd, and they're not passionate. That was burnout. And I've seen it so whereby people have the passion, they have the starving crowd, but they don't have the skill set. And then they end up in frustration because they sell something they can't deliver. So to make my answer, my long-winded answer more succinct, get clear on what you want and make sure it covers all 3 of those domains. Make sure the thing that you're going into, you have the skill set, you're passionate about, and there's an audience to buy your product from you.
Awesome. Well, that's definitely some great words of wisdom and some great takeaways. So with that, and as we are wrapping up the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Hey, the best place is to go to the domain profit.gifts. So I've got some gifts for you there, some things that you can take and use that will help you in your business, whether you're just starting up or whether you are already on your journey, well away on your journey. There's some free reports there. He's taken the best knowledge I have over the last 20 plus years of being in business and putting it into into a resource that will help you. There's 125 tips there that will help you maximize your profitability in a free way. So I get a lot of rave reviews about this report and this book. It's taken a lot of knowledge and thinking to put it in there. So yeah, go to profit.gifts, access your free gifts there. And if you do want to reach out, I'd be more than happy to hear from you. My contact details are on that page.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, make the connection, and take advantage of a lot of free great gifts. So with that, thank you again, Kevin, for coming on the podcast. It's been it's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you, the listeners who are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So let's go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners, make sure to click share, subscribe, and leave us a review. So it helps us to share this, all these awesome journeys with even more startups and small businesses to help them along their way. And on that note, if you ever need help with your patents, your trademarks, or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Thank you again, Kevin, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.